Hello everyone, David here for chesslessons.com. And today we're going to go over the game of DaciteRocks rated 1241 versus Shamshod1903 rated 1270 from LeeChess.org under 1300 Blitz Super Arena, or Super Blitz Arena I should say. And this was a 3-0 game, very exciting game, lots of learning lessons, e4, e5. And this is a very tricky move, queen to h5. And what white is hoping for is that you'll play g6 and then he'll take on e5. And regardless of how you block the check, because you have to block the check, he'll pick up this rook for free. So it seems like you knew that and you played knight to f6 to attack. But the problem with this move is that it gives up a pawn for free. And that's not the end of the world because you actually gain some time. It's sort of like a gambit. You basically gain some time and you develop your pieces faster, which can lead to a lot of tactics. But let's just very briefly take a look at how the game should be played in its most accurate form. So knight to c6, defending the pawn on e5. He renews the threat of checkmate with bishop c4. And then now you do have to play g6. He no longer can take this pawn because the knight's holding it, so he renews the threat of checkmate with queen to f3, threatening to checkmate you. And you play knight f6 here. There's no longer a checkmate. And now he renews the threat of winning a pawn here with queen to b3. And here you have to play this tricky move. Knight to d4 I think is best. And the reason for that is now you're hitting the queen. So let's say he takes the pawn on f7, you move your king up, and now this piece over here is going to be hanging no matter what. If he, let's say, tries to escape, because his queen is under attack, so he has to move it somewhere. If he just completely runs away to the other side of the board, you just pick up the bishop for free. So if he's an experienced player, maybe he'll try something like queen to c4 to protect this, make sure you can't take it, at which point you can play b5 and displace this bishop. And now none of these squares are viable options. If he plays check, you just grab the bishop. So that was a little detour, and just maybe you want to remember that variation over there for next time you encounter queen to h5. And let's just see what happened in the game now. Queen takes, bishop e7. I like this move. Castling very quickly. I like this move again. And h4. This is a little bit too early and aggressive on your opponent's part. Basically, your opponent is not developed and not castled. Like, he didn't castle. His rooks can't see one another. His knight and two bishops aren't developed. He shouldn't be launching an attack so quickly. And you played a great move. Rook to e8, opposing the queen and the king, which is excellent. And as we'll see, there's a rule in chess where if the king is in the center as it is, then you should open lines to the king, meaning try to get rid of the pawns and pieces that lead to the king and attack the king. So he actually helped you. He moved his queen away. Now you can open lines to the king by taking that pawn, which you did very nicely. And your opponent, once again, he's going for an attack, even though he's not ready for an attack. And honestly, I don't think you really have to worry about this so much. I guess what he's threatening long term is to go to h6 and then take here and then checkmate you. But that's 3 moves away. In the meantime, a move you should have considered instead of h6, let's just go back and forth, get rid of the arrows, is bishop to d6, attacking the queen. So he can't really escape this. This is a very serious threat. If he, let's say, runs away over here back to his to the g1 square where the knight used to be, you just play this discovered check. The king can't escape, and he's forced to block with the bishop. And now pretty much every move here is close to winning. You can take with the knight. And if you want, you can even take with the rook. and play check. He's forced to go here, but I actually suggest taking with the knight because then you have two pieces under attack and hanging. So definitely want to take with the knight, and you're attacking the queen here. The only place it seems that the queen can go to escape is maybe here, and then you have this check again. So that's totally crushing, totally winning. Um, okay, you didn't play that. It's okay. You played h6, and now let's see what happened. He attacked your knight, and again, I think in this position, I think you can still play knight here. Uh, and then let's see, his pawn will take you, and you have this discovered check on the king, and there's really no way to block, and he'll lose his queen afterwards. You went away, you jumped backwards, not a bad move, and your opponent took your knight. And let's see, so let's go all the way back. Sorry about that. So knight e4, h6, d3, knight g5, and he took. So I just wanted to note, so this move you spend 22 seconds, and then this next move you spent about 1 second. So if you had spent maybe like 10 seconds on this move, you'd realize very quickly that there's a checkmate in two. So if you want to try to find it, maybe pause the video. I'll give you 5 seconds. Here, let me move my mouse so you can see. Pause the video here. See if you can find a checkmate in two, and I'll give you a hint. There's a double check here, and then on the next move you could play mate. So here we go. So it's bishop to b4 check with the bishop and check with the rook on the king. The white side, white player Shamshod can't block with the bishop because he's still in check with the rook, and he also can't block with this bishop because he's still in check on the other side. So he's forced to move. Now you have a simple checkmate in one. So maybe you want to try to remember this pattern for future games. And one thing to note is anytime you have a capture in chess, wait a second or two, don't auto recapture. It's people's inclination, their sense of fairness, I guess, where if someone takes your piece, you want to immediately take their piece. But just give yourself more than 1 second, and I think you'll be able to find mates like these in the future. And we won't go too much further. I just wanted to go over that opening. We'll look at a few more moves. So you took, and he blocked with his bishop, which is a good move. And you decided to exchange pieces. So there's a lot of pressure on this bishop right now. There's no reason to take it right away. Maybe what you could do is build more pressure on this piece because right now it's pinned. So, I mean, if you play a move, let's say like d5, right? And your opponent, let's say he's not so experienced and he plays a move like knight to c3, you can push, and now in the next move you can take this bishop because he can't move. So you shouldn't be in a rush to take a weak piece. This is a weak piece because it's pinned. So what you want to do to weak pieces is kind of like pile up on them, not just capture them right away. Okay, so you grab that, you want a free pawn. And notice how these pieces haven't come into play yet. So one thing you want to get used to doing is before you start your attack, you want to get all your pieces out and ready to play. You don't want to do a 1-piece or 2-piece attack. You want to try to get a 4 or 5-piece attack. So knight c6, knight to d4. See, this is pinned, so you can build pressure on it. And he plays this move, queen to f4, attacking your rook. So you noticed here that there's a knight fork, and then he counterattacked you. So he's attacking the knight, and he's attacking the rook here with his queen. and you went ahead and took this knight, correct? So one thing to note in chess is that there's a concept of intermezzo moves or in between moves. So in between moves are basically moves you can make um, first or before you make another move. And what that does is it basically gains you material. So you're gonna lose this rook if you take your no matter what. Like the second you take this rook with your knight, note that your knight is going to be trapped in the corner, and then he's going to take your rook. So what you could do is actually take this bishop first, so you get a piece for it. He can't capture your knight, and then let's say he recaptures this way, then you just capture the rook. So now instead of just giving up your rook for nothing, you get an extra bishop. See, in the sequence that you played, you took the rook, he took the you took the rook, he took your rook, but this bishop is still in the game. So if you're gonna lose your rook anyways, you might as well get a piece for it. Okay, and then you play d6, and he's slowly going over to grab your knight, queen f6. I guess he realized that if he just moves his king out of the way, that his rook can capture your knight. So he kind of wasted a move on the previous move, and you develop your bishop finally. One thing to note is that in chess, it's bad to have double pawns. So if you're gonna lose this piece anyways, maybe you want to just give him this check, have him take, and then he has double pawns, and then play bishop to e6. Just a little note, these little things add up. So you play bishop e6, you took. Now your rook is facing his queen, which I think is a good move. And kind of drop this pawn. So in chess, you always want to be careful not to remove the guard of your pieces. This rook is guarding this pawn. Maybe you want to first prepare that with something like g6 so that he can't take the pawn, or maybe even a6. So you played that, not the end of the world. It's still anyone's game. I would say you're probably even a little bit better right now. Um, Queen to f2, rook over, and then he just dropped his queen. Wow, so how did you lose this game? I'm guessing you lost on time. This knight attacks your queen. So it was like, I guess it was a double blunder. Like, he grabbed your pawn, and then you didn't realize that this is hanging your queen. Like, he could have just grabbed your queen. And it's normal, like in the under 1700 section, even in the higher level sections, people hang their pieces sometime. But what you want to try to do is just remember that queens and bishops go both ways. So just because he went one way doesn't mean he can't come back. And you don't want to really put your pieces on squares that aren't defended. So you don't really have a piece defending the square. So maybe like a better idea is maybe to play like a check, or basically defend your pieces. Like right now, your problem is that this pawn is hanging, this pawn is hanging. So maybe you want to play a defensive move like bishop back, defending this pawn. So I think that's a good stopping point. I'm not sure how you lost. I'm guessing you lost on time for the remainder of this game because you are up a significant amount of material. Looks like you hung your queen. So he kind of like gave you this bishop for free. All you had to do is take it, and then anywhere he goes, you just take the rook next. And you're completely winning here, but I understand this was a fast game. So key takeaway from this game, I would say, is one, maybe play the opening a little bit better. So yeah, knight c6 is the main move, and then after bishop c4, don't get checkmated, don't get checkmated again. And after queen to b3, just remember this knight d4 trick. Secondly, it's good that you outdeveloped him. You didn't need to play h6. I think this would have won on the spot, but I guess you got lucky here after knight g5, knight takes. Don't auto respond by recapturing right away. Instead, ask yourself, do I have a better move than recapturing? And in this case, you had this checkmate. So yeah, I hope you use what I'm showing you in this video to apply it to your other games. And if you have any questions, leave it in the comments. And if you'd like me to analyze any more of your games, please send them over. Here's my username on Lichess.